want to get out of y'all's way and welcome up our first speaker, Kelly Criswell, the Chief Creative Officer of the GRO agency. She's going to talk to you a little bit about brand design, some of the best practices for making your products look good. One of the things to think about here is that, in fact, what your brand looks like is going to be probably the most important piece of marketing that you have as an early stage brand. So what you look like in store, what you look like on a screen is going to be the earliest and most important expression of what your product is. And here to show you the best way to create that relationship between the consumer or the store buyer and your product is Kelly Criswell.
Thank you. Is there a clicker? Yes. I need a clicker.
I almost absconded.
Thank you. I'm Kelly. This is Danielle. We are actually both speaking today about strategic packaging design. So we're going to talk a little bit about brand strategy and packaging design and how we can help you connect with consumers with that. So let me figure this out. Cool. So we're the GRO agency. We are a branding and packaging agency focused in the food and beverage space. Oh my God, thank you, another mic. We are based in New York and Los Angeles. We've been around 30 years doing this. I've been doing this my whole career, which is a long time, and I'm not going to tell you how long. And we're just focusing on connecting your brand with the right consumer. So, again, I'm Kelly Criswell. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of the GRO agency. My secret vice is candy corn. So if any of you guys have a gluten-free, organic, calorie-free candy corn brand, please hit me up after. And this is Danielle. Danielle Muller, she's the VP of Strategy at the GRO agency, and her secret vice is coming up with brand names and buying the URLs. So if you can't find your URL, you might want to hit Danielle up after this too. So I'll pass it over to you for now, right?
Thank you. I have too many things. Will you click for me?
I will click for you.
Thanks, Cal.
Sure.
I was going to say something about URLs, but I lost my thought. So as Kelly said, we focus on brand strategy and strategic packaging design. So we're going to give you a little bit of information about what we mean. So the purpose of brand strategy is to connect your product to consumer needs and emotions in a competitive market. What your product does and says and how that intersects with how your product makes people feel is your brand. Your brand is essentially there to evoke a feeling, and it's a really important connective element to drive loyalty and to drive revenue. Thank you. So, building your brand. I think something that a lot of people don't recognize, particularly early on, is that good design doesn't always equal strategic packaging design. And what I mean by that is you can have a pretty package that isn't focused or communicating all of your most important attributes in a prioritized way, and therefore it may not actually be connecting with your target. So the value of branding is really in distilling your message and focusing your personality. The entire idea is to connect with human beings and resonate with things that they relate to. You want to think of your brand as a conversation. If you're at a party having a conversation, you don't want to be talking to someone who's boring. You're not going to pay attention. You also are probably not going to spend very much time with someone who's speaking a different language because you don't understand them. And, you're obviously going to gravitate towards someone that you relate to rather than someone that you don't. So all of those things are also really important for your branding. It's human nature to gravitate toward things that you like and things that are like you and things that speak your quote-unquote language. So those are the kinds of things that we uncover through the brand strategy process. Thanks.
I feel like Vanna White.
Well done. So what do these three products have in common? Kelly and I chose three products who we really appreciate their brands. Rebel, Death Wish Coffee, and Boom Chicka Pop. these products are very different and they're targeting very different people, so what do they have in common? Next. So they've done a really good job of distilling a clear and resonant personality, and they're having a really interesting ongoing conversation with their consumer. So Rebel is really working with righteous plant alchemy, and they're targeting like a seeker of enlightenment. It's a wellness kind of beverage. Death Wish Coffee is the world's strongest coffee. They're very rebellious. They're very sarcastic and funny. If you don't follow them on Instagram, you really should. And Boom Chicka Pop. So Boom Chicka Pop has managed to make popcorn the feel-good snack. And they have a very whimsical package. And it's a really good example of brand positioning because it's difficult to give popcorn a distinctive personality, right? But they've made it really connective, really fun, and uplifting. So essentially, the whole mission of brand strategy is to distill your message, right? So what you want to do, and it's actually quite difficult to do it, is you want to extract the essential meaning or most important aspects of your product and brand. And we talk to founders all day long, and they are so proud of their products, and they are so connected to their products, and in their mind, their product does everything for everyone. And there are a million things to shout from the rooftop, and unfortunately, that's not a super effective way to approach your brand. So we're going to talk about how we go through the brand strategy process to distill this essential meaning. Next. Thank you. So we start with uncovering all of your attributes. Branding is a very right brain, left brain kind of thing. There is a lot of analysis involved, there's a lot of creativity involved, and there's an element of intuition. And so the first thing we do is we build the foundation by uncovering all of the attributes and then prioritizing those attributes. Because not all of those attributes are equally important to your target. And part of that process is also identifying your target, right? Because you aren't marketing to everyone. That's not an effective way to market. So you have to choose a target, and then you have to choose the attributes that are most relevant and most compelling to that target. Next. On top of that, we build the brand promise. So you guys are dealing with some really savvy consumers out there, and they really want to buy products that resonate with their values. And because of that, you really need to have an authentic brand promise. You really want to look beyond your product, but at your company values, at what your business is trying to do in the bigger picture in the world. We create a belief statement around that, and that brand promise is woven into all of your communications and all of your branding. Brand personality. So, like I said, with the Rebel, Boom Chicka Pop, and Death Wish, you really have to have a strong and resonant brand personality, and this is where you're making the human connection. So we do a lot of activities and exercises around developing brand personality. We work with Jungian archetypes. We do a lot of exercises around finding your brand voice. How are you going to sound to people? What are you going to look like to people? And part of the process around doing that is really investigating your whole story, right? So we look at your founder story. We look at the history of your ingredients. Maybe we look at the process by which you make your product. We really look at the whole picture, and then we distill the most compelling sort of nuggets, the things that are going to be most interesting to your consumer, and we assign human characteristics to your brand and to your voice, and we build this really robust personality. And ultimately, if you do this well, the whole goal of this process is to get to the insight. So essentially, you want to be summing up what you're offering your consumer in one really succinct and clear statement. And that means that you are really able to communicate in one statement the unique position, the really unique solution, your unique proposition that you're offering the consumer. So once you've done all of this, once you've created this really strong brand strategy foundation, you use that to connect to a visual language that then informs your packaging design. So I think, right, I'm handing this over to Kelly now. Kelly's going to talk to you about how we at the GRO agency connect brand strategy to the visual language that becomes your packaging design.
Thank you. So, this is the other part of what we do, it's packaging design. Consumers make buying decisions in 7 seconds or less. That means your packaging design has to connect very quickly to the consumer to help guide their decision. We think that the intersection of brand strategy and the shopping or the buying environment is where packaging strategy lies. So taking those two things into account is how you come up with your packaging strategy. So I'm going to take you through just kind of some brief high-level stuff about how strategic packaging design can connect with consumers and some kind of best practices. These are what I think are the 5 elements of great packaging design. 1, it should visually communicate the brand positioning, so that big insight that you got through your strategy work should be communicated quickly on pack. 2, it should immediately and intuitively differentiate your brand, so what makes your brand different? Why should consumers care? 3, it should communicate taste appeal and or functional benefits. 4, it should create an emotional connection with the target consumer. And if you do all of those things well, this is kind of a build, the last thing is that it guides consumer purchase quickly. So I'm going to take you through some images of strategic packaging in action and kind of dissect them a little bit and tell you how these packages are working with the strategy. So here's the first case study. Pacific Gold Reserve. This is a brand that came to us a while back with a package that wasn't working for them, right? So really the key issue here is that they're trying to do too many things, and that's a pretty common problem with brands. They had a product that was very flavor forward, that was very natural, that was very premium, and they were targeting both men and women. And they're trying to do a lot of things that are contradicting itself on pack. So they've got a premium brand with a very kind of pedestrian logo that's, you know, a little bit juvenile. They're trying to tell an upscale flavor story, but they're doing it with illustrated flavor cues, which is, you know, a little bit fake looking. And all of their communication is kind of muddled. Is it natural? Is it premium? Is it, you know, who's it focused to? And so what we did is we really distilled their message. So we really focused their package on premium craft jerky. And the personality and the feeling tone is passionate authenticity. So how did we do that? We made the logo very premium and very upscale, right? We changed the typography and made it more craft feel. We included actual photography, right, instead of illustrated photography or illustrated flavor cues. And we changed the whole color tone to target who we thought was the earliest adopter, which is male. And to kind of get to that end result, we used what I call the okayest theory. So all of you guys have products that do a lot of things. As Danielle mentioned, there's a lot of claims that you can make. And I think you can't do everything well. You can only do a couple things well, right? So we helped them focus on the things that were most important. We look at the brand mission, the brand values, and say, what are the most important messages for us to convey here? And all of the rest of the things, we just kind of do the okayest at, right? So I call it the okayest theory because I think it's easy to figure out what are the things that are the most important to me? What are the things that are the most important to my brand? I can shout those from the rooftop. I'm down with that, right? But when you have to make difficult decisions and say, okay, all the rest of the things have to be secondary now, and I have to just be okay with them being quiet. And so that's what we did on this package. It is still a natural product, but all of those claims are kind of at the bottom, very quietly talking, and we really had to focus on the premium. And so the result was 20% increase in sales. They did really well in subsequent years due to that redesign. And they were able to launch a couple sublines within that first year that were very successful. And here's some of their Instagram feed, and I put this up here because their engagements were up 660% compared to the year prior. And if you do the okayest theory, and if you really focus and distill the message of your package, you will get an Instagrammable package, and that will help boost your engagements, and you will talk to the proper target. So Schulstad, this is a bread company that has a long heritage. It's a European company with this rich, distinct history. And they came to us wanting to launch a take and bake bread in the bakery aisle of grocery. And they wanted to do something different. and disruptive in the bakery section. And so we really focused their personality with this quirky traditionalist feel, and their message is the union of artisan craft and modern expertise. And the way we visually achieved that is by using an illustration of the founder, so kind of intermixing this old school feel with this kind of new modern twist, this, something quirky, disruptive, differentiated. And the way we got to that strategy was by assessing the environment, by looking at the buying environment. The bakery section of grocery is primarily brown, everything's very understated, and so we did something very disruptive in that section. And the only way to get to that point is to really look at your competition, really assess the space that your product is going to live so that you can disrupt. Solum Agua Fresca is a product that just is launching in the US. It's a Mexican company. They make an authentic agua fresca product. And they wanted to really position themselves not as the stereotypical like sugary juice water, but as a modern wellness brand. And so in order to help them do that, we created a brand story around a personality. So we created this, the story that's actually based on a real story. It's a traditional Aztec god of hydration and earthly wellness and fertility. And we created a whole story around it, and we created a brand mark to reflect that story. So the personality of the brand is what's important here. They're still all about authentic hydration with functional benefits, but the personality is this jubilant, soulful creator. So it's an experience. And of course, we did call out the main differentiator on the side of the pack, which is fiber and probiotics. But I think this is a good example of making a making a package into a personality. Because really, your goal here is to get the shopper to pick you up. You might have a rich, beautiful backstory and all these great claims that are on the back of pack. But the goal is to get the shopper to grab you and say, what is this thing? And then turn it around and look. So that's what we've done here through the brand personality. And here's all the flavors. Simple Life is a CBD line of teas and waters. And their brand is all about simplifying the modern life, right? And achieving a sense of balance and wellness. So their old packaging is very, it's informational, it's serious, it's a little bit medicinal. And what we did is we kind of visualized the feeling tone of how you would feel when you drink this product. So we created a visual language based around this peaceful seeker feeling and this good vibes for the modern day messaging, and created a unique brand voice around that. So using colors and using illustration and using a style that should give you a feeling of like respite and peace and balance. And we use a clear visual hierarchy to kind of get all of those claims together in a way that's easy to navigate for the consumer. You've got to be able to tell the difference between the flavors. You've got to be able to cut through all the clutter and really guide the consumer into what information you want them to read first. That's what a hierarchy does. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Annie's. I love Annie's as a brand. Annie's is the best brand. I buy this every week for my kids. They'd kill me if I didn't do it. So Annie's is a great example of a very strong brand, but their packaging execution is a little bit muddled, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We have a joke around the office that the Annie's logo probably came from the Little Orphan Annie logo at some point back in the day. I don't know if this is true or not. If any of you guys are from Annie's, maybe you can tell me. But, borrowing some of that heritage, which I think is great. Where they fall off a little bit is that they don't express the core brand message consistently across all of the packages. So at first glance, it almost looks like you're looking at a bunch of different brands, right? So there's no strong ownability on shelf. There's no real strong brand blocking across flavors and across SKUs. And there's no strong color blocking. And it is perfectly okay to change the color for each flavor of your package. That's perfectly reasonable. But there needs to be one strong core element that goes across your SKUs to tie it all together as one single brand. And there's also no real clear system for shoppability, so good luck finding the gluten-free variety or whatever in this. So if you're from Annie's, you didn't miss a memo. we decided a couple days ago that we were going to try to do an example of what we're talking about, right? How you take strategy and build a package around that. So here's what we would do with Annie's. We would focus on the message. And we think the core message for Annie's is made with goodness. When I think of Annie's, I know that everything I'm going to get is good. And we think the personality is the quirky caregiver. So we've created a package. We've really cut through the clutter of all the messaging they have on their pack and hit the main core thing that we're trying to say, which is made with goodness. And all of the information is in that little label at the bottom that maybe Mama Annie popped on the package herself. But it's easy for the shopper to tell which SKU is which flavor is which. And we couldn't resist showing a visual system for the product extensions. So this is just one flavor, and we're showing what does that flavor look like in gluten-free? What does it look like in vegan? What does it look like in grass-fed? It helps the shopper understand what they're buying and how to identify the system of where's the other gluten-free, where's the other vegan. And last but not least, you never want to alienate your loyal consumer. So if you are doing a redesign, it's important to keep a lot of the elements the same, especially flavor color. If I came home with that purple box of Annie's and it was a different flavor, there would be anarchy at my house. So you really don't want to confuse the shopper. You really don't want to make shopping difficult. So these are the 3 flavors from one type. Yeah, that's about it. I think, this kind of sums up visually what we're trying to talk through with all the different, different bits of strategy and how that can work for you in your packaging design. So thanks.
So we've got about 4 minutes for questions. If anyone has any, I can start off. I think I've developed a pretty good package. How can I have someone from the professional services world vet it without necessarily trying to bill me for a redesign?
You mean advice?
Advice or review.
You could come to our table after this and show me.
We just added that service to our service menu.
Right, just now. No, but honestly, with brands that are small, just come and talk to us. We love giving advice. We give free advice all day long. And plus, this is what we're passionate about. This is what we're into. We're brand geeks, so we want to look at your package and tell you. A lot of the times, I tell you your package is great to start with. Go for it.
Any questions from the audience? Hold, please.
You had some stats on one of your products earlier about growth and velocity in sales. How did you associate that with just the repackaging of the redesign of the package?
Oh, I actually got that from the client, and so those are based on the numbers from after the redesign, right? So before redesign, after redesign, they compared those numbers, and that's how they got those.
I understand that, but was there anything else associated with it? Were there any demos involved?
They
ads
tracked
and promotions?
those
Yeah.
internally, so we don't know exactly how they went about that, but that was what they delivered to us when.
When we asked.
So
Yes.
this guy is
Great
in
question.
search of metrics, I think.
Well, yeah, we all
Yeah,
are, right?
what else was
You put a number up
involved?
there, but you got to provability is.
No,
what you're looking for.
totally. Did they have a big marketing campaign? I'll tell you, they did not do a lot of marketing around it. They didn't do any in-store point of sale, and they didn't do any demoing. So what else they did, I don't know. They may have done some digital stuff. I'm not privy to it, but hopefully the numbers they gave me are right.
We have time for one more quick question.
Thank you. Really enjoyed the presentation, so thanks very much. Just a quick question. Would your tactics or recommendations change based on the channel? So, for example, if it's predominantly sold on web versus in-store, would that alter anything you suggested here?
It may, yeah. Those are all of the things that we take into consideration. It just depends. And it is really important that we look at the whole scope of your plan, your business strategy, which obviously is distinct, although not everyone realizes that, from your branding strategy. And we take all of those, both near-term and long-term, into account.
Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you.